And coming in at you live with another one. Hello to all my Bi-Conics YouTube fanatics out there. And welcome to another episode of Beat the Clock TV Review for this week's NXT for August 8th. I'm going to just start off by saying I'm enjoying NXT every single week. I am also happy to report that I'm slowly getting some of the other hosts to take a look at NXT. And I'm happy to see that they're finally understanding that there's a lot of good potential with NXT if you go into it with the right mindset. And if you're looking for new talent to follow their journey as they go up to the main roster. This week's of NXT, we did get confirmation and we're slowly starting to build to what was announced in the middle of the show, that in 2 weeks, NXT will have their special television show, Heat Wave, which is similar to Gold Rush that happened earlier this summer. So while not necessarily a PLE, it will have some phenomenal matches, and we'll talk more about that as we get into the review. Overall, there was a lot of good character progression this week. Some new feuds and stories are starting to build out as we build towards Heat Wave, and eventually down the line, I could see what we can get at No Mercy. So let's just jump straight into the review this week. We opened up NXT with a match between Axiom and Mustafa Ali. This was a solid opener match. I love these two in the ring together. Axiom kind of doing this unprecedented lucha libre style. And of course, if anybody knows, Axiom is formerly known as A-Kid from NXT UK, who specializes in not only luchador style-esque wrestling, but also mat wrestling as well. It's really fun to see. I'm so happy that Mustafa Ali is actually getting television time, unlike when he was on the main roster, now that he's in NXT. We are slowly starting to see Mustafa Ali become more and more heel, as towards the finishing sequence of this match, Mustafa Ali pulls Axiom's mask off and then hits him with a 450 splash to get the pin and be the winner. I'm interested to see, so it seems that Mustafa is not done with the North American title picture yet. So it seems that eventually he's going to find his way to Dominic and then fight Dominic for the title. But he's becoming more and more heelish, so I'm interested to see if it's going to be heel Dom versus heel Ali, which normally we don't see heel and heel interactions or face-to-face interactions, but it is a good time nonetheless. We get a backstage segment after this match that shows that the Schism is on the rampage. They are looking for the Creed brothers after what happened last week, with them making a fool out of them on national television. So the Schism is out backstage on a rampage, destroying talent, destroying the backstage area, looking for the Creeds. And this is going to be a continuing thread as the rest of the night goes on, which I'll talk more about when we get there. The next match is a quick one. We see Kaylani Jordan taking on Blair Davenport. So this match occurred because over the weekend, Kaylani Jordan posted to social media that she is taking Dana Brooke's advice to trying to find her killer instinct, and that she's following Dana's advice of calling out people. So she decides to call out Blair Davenport. Not necessarily the smartest choice, Kaylani, but I'm totally here for it nonetheless. Honestly, I'm liking Kaylani more and more. This is only her third match, but I see a lot of potential. The gymnastics, and obviously she does need a little more work in the ring, but you know what? She has this quality about her that I'm interested to see progress and develop as she continues on with her NXT journey. But ultimately, Blair Davenport is slowly starting to build up from her loss against Roxanne at Great American Bash. She ends up proving too much for Kaylani, gets the pin to win. After the match, Dana Brooke comes down and she gets in the face of Blair Davenport, and then Blair exits the ring as Dana tries to whip her with the belt. And as Kaylani goes to try to stop Dana from acting wild, Dana turns around and almost hits Kaylani with her belt. So Dana Brooke is becoming a little bit unhinged. She loves the feeling of being violent and finding that killer instinct. And she's slowly starting to use the character trope where she is projecting everything that has happened to her in terms of the IWC, the internet wrestling community, and just everything else in her career in WWE. And she's using the I'm projecting this onto you trope as she's projecting it on Kaylani. And we'll get more of this when we get to their segment later in the show. We get a quick backstage interview from Von Wagner. It basically amounts to that Braun Breaker has disrespected him, so he's going to put him through a table. I was laughing so much looking at Von's shirt because you're going to get tabled, and anybody who looks up that term on Urban Dictionary, you will understand why I was laughing. So go ahead and take a look at that. It's freaking hilarious. So last week, we got a little backstage segment where Tyler Bate decided, hey, you know what, Noam Dar, I'm going to fight you for this title. And Noam Dar agrees to defend the... Now, I say the NXT Heritage Cup Championship, but we got the storyline where Nathan Frazier is the actual champion, and this is a knockoff version, but no, it's like a support. It's like a support stuffy in the form of a championship for Noam. But ultimately, we get Noam Dar defending his NXT Heritage Cup Championship against Tyler Bate. Remember, if you are not familiar with the Heritage Cup rules, this is 5 2-minute rounds, and it's best 2 out of 3 pinfalls that win. So you need to win 2 pinfalls within those 5 rounds. Each round is only 2 minutes. It kind of is similar to the pure rules, just not as extensive. But I thought this was a great match. I love Noam Dar. I love Tyler Bate. It was like flashes of NXT UK on my television screen. And ultimately, heading into the 5th round, we are tied at 1-1. And then ultimately, Tyler Bate picks up the second pinfall to become your new NXT Heritage Cup champion. But not really, because it's not the real one. But I will say, I hate the name for Noam Dar's faction, a metaphor, but their entrance is kind of cool. I love like the superhero-esque entrance where the colors go up behind each member and then they all come walking out. This is the fun faction and it's really, really fun. After this match, we get Hank and Tank discussing, different names for their tag teams, where the Schism come in and ask them if they've seen the Creeds. They say no. Schism attacks Hank and Tank, once again continuing to be on a rampage, still looking for the Creeds. We get an interview with Ilya Dragunov, who tells our backstage interviewer, Mackenzie, Ilya tells her that Trick is to blame for him not winning the NXT Championship at Great American Bash, and he is going to end Trick Williams when he comes to the ring later tonight. We kind of pair this with a segment where we see Carmelo Hayes watching a television of Ilya's interview and worrying about Trick. And Dijak comes in and tells Carmelo, be like, hey, did you see what I did to Eddie Thorpe last week? And Carmelo basically tells Dijak, I got better things to worry about, more important things to worry about. I'm not paying attention to you. And as Dijak tries to make his case of why he's the next person to challenge Melo for the title, Wesley comes in and interrupts and gets in Carmelo's face, continuing what happened last week after there was some miscommunication that cost them their match. And Carmelo, before he could say anything, Dijak interrupts again and says, Wes, what are you doing? And ultimately, Dijak and Wes argue back and forth, which basically is setting up what we're getting next week, which I'll talk about when we get to the bumper section of this review. And as Wes turns around to talk to Carmelo, Dijak attacks him from behind to remind him that he is always watching and, nobody can stop him. And so, listen, I enjoyed Wes and Dijak's match at Vengeance Day earlier this year. So if that means we get more of them in the ring, I'm sold. I'm here for it. It's going to be great. Ilya comes out to the ring next and cuts a promo and basically just calls Trick Williams out. Trick comes out and runs down to Ilya and tells him that, I don't want to be Carmelo's sidekick. I didn't cost you that match. You ran into the belt, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to prove to you, I'm going to prove to everyone here in the NXT universe that I can hang and I'm more than just Carmelo's sidekick in a match, and that in 2 weeks at Heatwave, that it's going to be Trick Williams taking on Ilya Dragunov. I'm sold. I said last week in my review, I loved how they split Trick and Carmelo. It doesn't have to be somebody turning on someone. People can amicably split for a little bit to go do their own thing, but there's always the door leads to a reunion because they're not turning heel on each other, and I love that. So in 2 weeks, we're going to get Ilya versus Trick Williams at Heatwave, so I'm excited for that. Next, Mackenzie interviews Drew Gulak and Charlie Dempsey. They were scheduled to face Hank and tank. But because the Schism attacked them, they're not medically cleared. And basically, Damon Kemp comes in and interrupts, saying that if they need an extra hand, he's there. Drew and Charlie turn him down a little bit, and then who should come in to fill in Hank and Tank's spot but Briggs and Jensen interrupt, saying that they're ready to get back into the ring. They're looking forward to getting back into the tag team scene, and that they're ready to go and that they'll fight Drew and Charlie. We end hour one of this NXT with we see Rey Mysterio talking to Roxanne Perez, giving her accolades, giving her advice. And then Rey excuses himself as he walks over and sees Thea Hale sitting by herself in the kitchen area of the Performance Center. Thea gets all starstruck, and Rey basically encourages Thea, tells her he understands what it's like to be the underdog, and that even though she didn't win the title, that that Rey sees all the heart that she gives, and that there's a star underneath there, and that she can't give up on herself, and basically just being a motivational speaker for Thea, which was really nice to see. And the internet community made me laugh. It's like Rey is out here being a dad to everybody else but his own son. And then I love the way that Thea just nonchalantly asked this, where she asks Rey, so, like, I know you're not on the best terms of your son, but do you still love him? In which Rey answers Thea's question by stating that Rey doesn't like the person that Dominic has become. He thinks he's hanging out with the wrong people, but at the end of the day, that's his son, that he loves him, and that no matter what, that one day he hopes that Dominic will see the light and see that I'm always going to be here for him. Rey excuses himself as Thea kind of contemplates about this, and then the rest of Chase U, Andre Chase and Duke Hudson, come in and say, whoa, Thea, you just talked to Rey. What a legend. And then Thea is still upset with Andre. So it's like, yeah, but unlike him, he wouldn't have thrown in the towel as she leaves. And Andre Chase is just flabbergasted. I am glad that Thea's not breaking up with Chase U yet. I'm still holding out to see whether or not she leaves. I hope she doesn't, because Thea I've come to love and Chase U along with Andre Chase and Duke Hudson. But we'll see where this story continues and whether or not we'll get something at Heatwave or if Thea's going to be involved in something at No Mercy. But I'm excited to see where this story goes. We kick off hour two. I'm going to be completely honest. This match served what it needed to, but I already knew I wasn't going to like this for a couple reasons. But we get Braun Breaker taking on Von Wagner. NXT, we need to have a talk real quick. Look, I know we don't want to keep putting Braun Breaker in the title picture, which is totally fine. You know, I think he's ready to do something else. The problem I have is that I don't think he should be put in a program with Vaughn. I know that I've been completely honest. I'm not the biggest fan of Von Wagner, but slowly, not necessarily his wrestling style, but his character I'm coming to like a little bit, because now he's being real. He's using his actual life in it. But I'm still not like 100% behind him. And my biggest issue is now that Braun is not in the title picture, he doesn't need to be in the championship picture all the time. But really, Von Wagner is the person you're having him feud with for a little bit. Honestly, like, there are a couple other guys on the roster that I would like to see Braun fight, like Braun versus Eddie Thorpe, Braun versus Wes for a little bit. Braun versus anybody but Von Wagner is honestly something I will take. But ultimately, Braun Breaker wins this match, and he goes to get Mr. Stone and tries to, like, hurt him, but Vaughn stops it, and at the end of it, Vaughn takes Braun, throws him into the table, and the table smashes, which means to tell me that we're not done with this feud. So either we're going to finish this feud either at Heatwave, which is my biggest hope, or we're going to drag this out until No Mercy, where these two are going to fight, which I hope is not the case. But, you know, we're going to see. And like always, as much as I love NXT, I always will give my honest opinions. And I'm not the biggest fan of Braun and Vaughn in this feud, but it is what it is, and we'll see where the story goes from here. Okay, so I want to talk about one of my favorite new peoples in NXT. So we get this video vignette with Eddie Thorpe. He kind of accounts. Now, he's holding his shoulder, so I'm really hoping that Eddie is not actually injured, and this is for storyline purposes, because I would be devastated if Eddie ended up being really, really hurt. But I really enjoyed this vignette. So Eddie Thorpe is in nature, and we get a little bit of his history. So Eddie Thorpe is Native American, so we get a little bit of his culture and what he does when he needs to focus. And so it's playing up like this very Native American mysticism aspect. And I'm actually really excited to see Eddie represent Native Americans in the professional wrestling world because, to my knowledge and to what I've seen, I haven't seen a lot of Native American wrestlers. And I love Eddie for it. I love his style. I love his entrance. I've said this to my co host multiple times. Eddie Thorpe has become one of my favorite representing Native Americans, representing Two Spirit people. Like, I love it. But ultimately, this vignette served for the purpose that Eddie is going to be in nature to kind of reconnect, and he is going to get back at Dijak, and he's ready for a rematch when he's ready. So I'm excited. Eddie has become one of my new favorites in NXT, and he's going to be definitely one I'm going to watch, and I'm probably going to gush over. So Eddie Thorpe, if you ever find this, know that I am supporting you 110%, and I'm really excited to see where your NXT journey takes you, and I'm going to be supporting you 100% of the time. You have won me over, dude. I am so excited. Next, we get a backstage segment with Rhea and Dominic kind of preparing for this NXT North America Championship match, and in walks Lyra Valkyria, who literally calls out Rhea Ripley, saying that she needs to take her own advice, and if she believes in Dom the way that she believed in her to take on JC Jane, that Rhea won't help Dominic retain his championship and let him fight his own battles before walking out. This will come into play at the main event, which I will talk about when we get there. But we next see the new NXT Tag Team Champions, the Tony D'Angelo family of Tony D'Angelo and Stacks, as they're doing the photo shoot. In the midst of this, the Schism comes walking up to them and basically does the same thing as looking for the Creed brothers. Tony and Stacks have this funny banter where they basically give information to the Schism that's everything but what the Creeds are doing. The Schism is getting ready to hit, but then the Dyad comes in and says that Tony and Stacks have what they want, which sets up what I'll talk about when we get to the bumper section. And as the Schism is ready to beat down the D'Angelo family, Tony and Stacks pull out the crowbars and are ready to mollywop everybody. And so the Schism's like, you know what? We out of here. Let's go, because crowbars are a big no-no. Next, we see Brooks and Jensen taking on Drew Gulak and Charlie Dempsey. I'm going to be honest, I'm not a big country music fan, and while I still have issues with Brooks and Jensen's characters, just being, good old country boys, I'm slowly starting to like them as a tag team. I do think they have gotten better since they've been in NXT for quite some time. But ultimately, they were no match against Charlie Dempsey and Drew Gulak, who won this match because Damon Kemp came out to help them pick up the victory. So it's looking like we're getting this faction of Drew, Charlie, and Damon. So this should be interesting. Next, we get a continuation segment from earlier in the night with Kaylani Jordan and Dana Brooke going back and forth. This is where Dana kind of goes more into the personal side of her WWE career, that she wants Kaylani to find her killer instinct and that she doesn't want her to experience what Dana did, which, if you don't know, the IWC, the Internet Wrestling Community, has not been the nicest to Dana, has told her that she should lose her job, she should get fired, negative comments, she's a bimbo, like all these hurtful things. And for a little bit, it did hurt Dana. And, I love Dana Brooke. I want her to be able to do more. So her in NXT is actually giving her something to do. And at least she's on my television screen. So that's awesome. But ultimately, she ends the segment by telling Kaylani, you know what? I'm going to show you what you need to do, which leads into the bumpers for next week as well. So I will talk about that in a little bit. Next, we get a match where my homegirl, Ivy Nile, takes on Kiana James. Now, this was weird because commentary had briefly mentioned this, but I'm not entirely sure. There was no confirmation. So it seems that this was a number one contenders match, possibly for Tiffany Stratton's NXT Championship, but there was no confirmation before or after the match that was the case. But the point being is, halfway through this match, the Schism come out with all their followers and then in unison start hitting on the ring to kind of cause a distraction for Ivy. Ivy does her best to push through it, And as she's ready to win, unfortunately, Kiana James pulls out all the stops here and ends up pinning Ivy for the win. So unless I get confirmation of something else as NXT continues, as we get into Heatwave, it seems that it's going to be Kiana taking on Tiffany for the title, which I think will be a fun match. Kiana has improved so much, and I became a believer of Kiana since, oh goodness, what was that PLE at the end of December where they had the Iron Woman Survivor Challenge? Like, she was great in that. And I was like, okay, girl, like, this is good. Like, she showed up, she showed out. I thought it was great. So, unless I'm told otherwise, it seems we're getting Kiana versus Tiffany for the NXT Women's Championship, but I could be wrong. Now, this is now the important thing is what happened after this match. So, after Kiana leaves, the Schism with their followers come into the ring and they surround Ivy, and basically they capture her and try to get her to tell her what the creeds are. Ivy says she doesn't know, and as they're continuing to interrogate Ivy, Tony and Stax come out with the crowbars to chase off the Schism and their followers, and we see Tony and Stax and Ivy in the ring as the Schism backs off and starts heading back to the ring. So it seems that Ivy is going to be with the D'Angelo family for a little bit as we continue on with this Find the Creed storyline with the Schism. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of the Schism as a faction, but you know what? At least we're getting something, and that's more than I can say for a lot of storylines that are not Bloodline or Judgment Day related on the main roster. So it's nice to see different factions and different wrestlers getting some shine. I love Ivy Nile. I feel like she is so underutilized in NXT, but it's nice to see her being involved in the storyline. And you know what? I'm excited to see maybe she becomes the muscle for the D'Angelo family for a little bit. And I'm loving that. Okay, so we're going to talk about this next part because this was the cheesiest thing. Like I said, I love my cheese in NXT and I love my cheese in professional wrestling. Like, I know people don't like the silliness of everything, but I think it can be silly, but it can also serve a purpose. So I kid you not, we get this like telenovela segment that includes Los Letarios, so Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo. And they're having this text conversation about how like we've lost our way. Our grandpa would be disappointed. Like there's freaking tears and they crying in this segment. Like no, there was no dialogue. It was just everything through text messages and just music. Like this was like a cheesy telenovela scene, but I'm here for it. So it seems that we're going to get a serious turn for Los Letarios, and I am here for it because I love Angel Garza. I love Humberto Carrillo. I think both of them are amazing wrestlers. And of course, got to support mis Latinos up in here, bro, as, one of the few Mexican and Puerto Rican co-hosts of the Bi-Conics, man. I hope that NXT does them right. I hope that they develop into awesome characters. And eventually, I would love to see them as tag team champions once, the D'Angelo family has had the run of it so far. But I love the cheese, but I'm also optimistic and hoping that this becomes more of a serious turn for Angel and Humberto and Los Lotarios are become a legit tag team and become a threat in the tag team division in NXT. Next, we get a backstage segment where Tyler Bate is holding the championship and Metaphor come up and basically tell him that, he needs to kind of give it back to Noam Dar as his support animal, his support stuffy, but just in championship form. And then Nathan Frazier comes in with the real NXT Heritage Cup Championship. And I love it. Nathan Frazier's just like, oh God, it's like the Spider-Man meme. And I was like, he said the thing. It's freaking hilarious. Ultimately, Nathan Frazier plays the mediator, and eventually Tyler Bate does give the championship back to Noam Dar, but under the condition that Noam faces Nathan Frazier at Heatwave to determine who's the real NXT Heritage Cup champion, and Noam agrees. So Nathan versus Noam for the NXT Heritage Cup Championship is set for Heatwave in 2 weeks. As Metaphor leaves, Tyler looks at Nathan, and Nathan's like, I know. I owe you big time. So I think Nathan's going to win at Heatwave, and then we're going to get Tyler versus Nathan at some point for the Heritage Cup, which I'm all about it. Give me Nathan Frazier. Give me Tyler Bate. Like, give me all of it. It's gonna be such a good match. And then I'm looking forward to Noam versus Nathan too. Any of my UK talent fighting each other in the ring is gonna be so good. Like, y'all have no idea. We're in for a treat. I'm excited. Next, we get Miss Tiffany Stratton being interviewed backstage by Mackenzie. And Tiffany is leaning into this Barbie character, and I'm kind of here for it. Let Tiffany be the NXT Barbie. But ultimately, Tiffany has no idea who her next. She hasn't put in much thought of who her next challenger should be, nor does she care because she's out here living her life. And so, I'm interested to see whether it's going to be Kiana James, unless I'm told otherwise. But yeah, I'm interested to see who's going to be next to face Tiffany because I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed this feud she had with Thea. Now, as much as I hate the same person going after the championship more than once, I would not be mad if we get one more match between Tiffany and Thea, third time's the charm. But ultimately, what I would like to see is Thea be at odds with Andre Chase, and she gets her own, like, Thea earns her own merit. She wins number one contendership. She does everything and she earns it her way. And then even though she loses against Tiffany at No Mercy or whenever we want to have this match, Andre Chase will tell her, listen, you did everything on your own. And, this was your final test and you're ready to graduate from Chase U. You got this. You're amazing. All this kind of good stuff. I think that's the best way to book it. Not sure if they're going to. But I would like Thea to get one more crack at it and then kind of like be the trilogy, be like done with it and then move on. But who knows? We'll see. Heatwave is the Heatwave is a special TV show. So usually titles don't change on there and they're not going to put big stars in these feuds for them to lose. So we'll see who ends up facing Tiffany if Tiffany defends her title at Heatwave. Trick Williams then gets caught by an outside interviewer as he's leaving for the night. As he's walking through the NXT parking lot, which is the most dangerous place in America, I still say, Wesley drives up in the car and tells Trick, like, yo, when I'm done with Dijak, I'm coming after Mello. And Trick's like, man, I ain't his messenger. You tell him yourself. And Wesley's like, all right, bet. And then leaves. As Trick Williams is trying to get to his car, Charlie, Drew, and Damon come up and basically call Trick Carmelo's sidekick purse holder and berate him. And Trick's like, nah, bro, like, I'm gonna be facing Ilya. I don't care. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna do what I need to do to prove myself, unlike y'all. So Trick Williams is slick with it with the comebacks. I love him. I love his comebacks for people. It's freaking hilarious. It's great. And I mean, I'm gonna say a prayer for Trick because I think Ilya's gonna knock him off the side of the planet. But I hope it's not one-sided. I would love to see Trick kind of get some licks in. And ultimately, I think Trick is losing this match at Heatwave, but I would love for him to gain the respect of Ilya, which I think works as a good narrative trope, is that if you get the respect of your opponent, then when push comes to shove, it gives the character credibility. And even in defeat, they still look strong because the other person acknowledged that their talent is there. They just need to work on it. So we'll see what happens. We then get the bumpers for next week's NXT, where we have a couple of matches. So the biggest one is we're going to see Wesley taking on Dijak, and the winner of that match will be the number one contender and will face Carmelo Hayes for the NXT Championship at Heatwave. I think Dijak is going to win this one because I don't want them to pull the trigger on Wes and Carmelo yet. I would like their first bout to be at No Mercy, and then you keep it going until the end of the year or whenever you want to go with it. We also see that the D'Angelo family is going to defend the NXT championships against the Dyad, which is continuing the storyline since the D'Angelo family kind of got into the Schism's business and defended Ivy Nile, so we'll see what happens there. And we're also going to be getting Dana Brooke taking on Blair Davenport. So I like to see Blair on my TV screen every week. I think she's a fantastic talent. I love that this Dana Brooke is getting more screen time. I love this little storyline of Dana out here trying to like fight people, and she gets thrills when she's in violent matches. So this is going to be fun. Then we get to the main event where we see Dragon Lee taking on the challenger, taking on Dominic Mysterio, the champion for the NXT North American Championship. I will say Dominic has improved a lot in the ring, and I kind of like seeing him on his own, away from Damian and Finn, because he has to rely on his own skills in the ring. And honestly, he kind of, yes, I think Dragon Lee did carry him a little bit, but Dominic is still new to this business. But I think he really held his own against Dragon Lee. Of course, you can never have a Dominic Mysterio match without shenanigans. So towards the finishing sequence, Rhea Ripley slides the NXT North America Championship to Dominic to hit Dragon Lee with. Rey Mysterio takes the title, and as those two are fussing, and the ref is distracted, as Dragon Lee goes to bounce off the ropes to get to Dominic, just like with Wesley, Rhea hits Dragon Lee with the title, which allows Dominic for the pin. So, and still, your NXT North American champion is Dominic Mysterio. This was a good Lucha Libre style match between both people. I still think that Dominic shouldn't use the 619 as a finisher, only because, not that he's not good at it, it's just he's really tall, so it's kind of awkward. His frog splash is impeccable. I love that one. But as the match ends, Rey gets into the ring and he kind of is yelling at Dominic, and Rhea kind of steps into Rey's face and belittles him. But out of nowhere, Lyra Valkyria begins to fight with Rhea Ripley, which forces Dominic and Rhea to escape, having Rey, Dragon Phoenix, and Lyra Valkyria standing tall in the ring, with Dominic and Rhea kind of standing on the entranceway trying to head back as NXT goes off the air for this week. I called it about 2 weeks ago. I said that I wanted more Lyra and Rhea, and I'm hoping that, well, while she's in NXT, give me Rhea versus Lyra, not for a championship, but just have them fight again. And it seems that Lyra and Rhea are going to be fighting a little bit more, which makes me excited because I really enjoyed their match 2 weeks ago. I thought it was so great. And it was nice to see Rhea wrestle because, main roster's not letting her for some odd reason. So it's nice to see that NXT's letting her wrestle. And I'm excited to see round 2 of Lyra and Rhea, whether we get it at Heatwave or if they want to do something crazy and have Rhea fight Lyra at No Mercy, which would be fun. But ultimately, I hope the feud between Lyra and Rhea continues. And it seems that Dragon Lee is not quite done yet with Dominic in the North American title scene. But that also begs the question, if Mustafa is also there, are we going to get a triple threat again at No Mercy? Is there going to be something else at Heatwave? We're just going to have to watch, because technically next Tuesday is the go home show for Heatwave. So we're going to get a final card of which matches are going to be on Heatwave in 2 weeks. And I'm excited to see. Now, let's get into my grade for this NXT. This week's NXT, I'm going to give it a solid 7. There was a lot of progression of characters. I love storylines that are coming out. We're building towards Heatwave. There's a lot of good things. My only critiques is I don't understand why Braun Breaker is feuding with Von Wagner. I don't think that feud helps him out a little bit. Like, I know they're trying to keep Braun out of the title scene, but I feel like there is a plethora of other guys you could have had him feud with. I also think that my only other critique too is, while I am more okay with the storyline with the Schism still feuding with the Creeds, if you're going to have a loser leaves NXT match, then what's the point of that stipulation? But if they allow Ivy to kind of be the main character for the storyline and is able to stand up to the Schism, but even in defeat, she's able to still prove her worth, I will be more okay with it. I also really enjoy the family kind of being the surrogates for the Creed brothers for Ivy, so I'm interested in that. Overall, I still have a couple of questions. I also don't like that we don't know who is going to be up against Tiffany next for the title. And we've been going 2 weeks and we still don't know, and Heatwave is in 2 more weeks. So we'll see, and it kind of bothers me a little bit that your NXT Women's Champion is not really doing anything much right now, but who knows, that might change, and they might be saving something to start the build to No Mercy, which I'm cool with. But that is going to be it this week for Beat the Clock for NXT. If you enjoy more, if you want to see more of our long form reviews, we pretty much review here all of the major wrestling television shows. So you can check our other Beat the Clocks. We cover all WWE, all AEW. We cover Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor, and we also cover the pay-per-views, which we just dropped a lengthy SummerSlam review where we talk about the highs and lows of the biggest WWE pay-per-view of the summer with our special guest, whom you're going to start seeing more of as we continue on with the Bi-Conics. So I'm excited to have him back. It was a great time. It was a great review. You can also check us out on the social medias on Threads, TikTok, Instagram, X, where you can catch all the notifications when these reviews go live, as well as everything else we post to the YouTube channel, as well as some behind the scenes stuff. And join us in our community. If you are looking for something a little bit different, we also have our Bi-Conics Wrestling Podcast, where we talk about anything and everything professional wrestling outside of the reviews. We talk about our favorite wrestlers. We talk about the state of wrestling. We talk about why representation is important in wrestling. Like, we talk about all the topics that are not television review related. So if you want to hear more of our in-depth thoughts and our passions, go ahead and check us out where all podcasts are found. But that is going to be it. This has been Mikey for your Beat the Clock review of NXT for August 8th. From all of us here at the Bi-Conics, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, and until the next episode, adios, sayonara, and thanks for watching.